Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your overly caffeinated host. First home day in the middle of conference season. I've been on the road for like the last 2 weeks straight. And today and tomorrow are days at home. So this is fantastic. But I am sleep deprived and overly caffeinated. And today we have with us Doug Ver Mulm, CEO and co-founder at Turris, in an episode that I can assure you is going to be just lit.
There we go.
So, Doug, first of all, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
It's going well. You gave me a little bit of PTSD from, I don't know if you remember in Vegas when you almost lit my face on fire.
Okay, so
In fact, we were,
we should address this since now it's been leaked on LinkedIn, right?
yeah,
Okay, so how this went was the following way. Last day of ITC Vegas 2024. This is how I remember. Do correct me if I'm wrong.
mm,
Paul Gagliotti gets a suite for the party. I don't even believe he stayed in the suite the whole week. It was
no,
literally for the last night party. And the party is fantastic. And it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going. And it's now like 3 a.m. and there's like 8 people left, right?
the
And
eight most fun people in insurance.
correct. The 8 most fun people in insurance and Micah Cooper are I hope he listens to this. I don't
I'll
think he
send
listens
this
to
to
the
him
podcast.
just so he
So,
does.
but I hope he listens to it and calls me out on it. Okay. So the eight most fun people in insurance, insurtech, and Micah Cooper are the last few leftovers at this party, which has been a lot of fun already. And someone wants to light a cigarette, and nobody has a lighter. By the way, I now have a lighter, and it is actually like a custom Zippo with like my business card on it. So we will be safe
Nice.
going forward. This is why I got it. Okay. Uh, and Paul Gagliotti says, Tony, you're a magician. You can create fire, which I
Yeah,
can, but it creates a foot of fire,
a lot of
right? This
flame.
is not meant to be used to light a cigarette. So I give proper warnings. Hey, I take no responsibility. I may or may not have had Doug sign a disclaimer, a waiver form. And then we proceeded to attempt it, and it worked.
Right. It worked. And just to be clear, the only reason I was lighting a cigarette was because I was working on my podcast voice. We were
Perfect.
about to launch a podcast and I wanted it to be nice and smoky.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't know if you smoke. All I know is that we successfully lit a cigarette with a fire wallet in a very unsafe way that I'd recommend nobody ever again try. And I do now carry a very nice simple lighter with me so that I can light somebody's cigarette without potentially lighting their face on fire. Yes, ITC is a lot of fun. The FTC after parties are a lot of fun. All right. So that normally I break the ice over the weather, but that's an even better ice break. We always give the chance. Oh, and before I do want to give you a proper introduction because you're not just an insurtech founder, which I interview hundreds of those. You're also co-host of the new of my new favorite podcast, Age of the MGA,
Yes.
which I am loving, not just because I got mentioned recently, but I am just loving it. Also, executive director at ITA, the InsurTech Association, which hosts
Yeah.
great events at InsurTech conferences, and
Thank you.
I'm sure you do other stuff. And also, this is not your first go around. You prior co-founder and CEO at Stable Insurance.
That's right. Yeah. So an MGA, which I can get into in a minute and how that kind of led to Turris, but maybe quickly on the podcast and on ITA. So the podcast, Dylan and Peter, my two co-hosts, good friends, and we would have a lot of people reach out to us and ask how to start an MGA or to make connections. And we thought, why don't we just try and get our friends on, people that we love talking to and listening to their story, and hear from them and give that out to the public. And so
Fantastic.
far, that's been received pretty well. We've had, I think, 4 live episodes now, and a bunch in the can. And so that's a lot of fun. And I would say it's kind of like the highlight of my week now, finding these people, talking to friends. We're going to start experimenting maybe with some not live, but recorded in person,
Live in
after
simplicity.
hours.
Recording
Sorry.
in person, I've only done out of 660 some episodes, 670 episodes that have gone out and like 710 recorded. I have only done maybe 3 at like recorded live at a conference. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It is different.
we'll do them after conferences because our thoughts
Mhm.
was maybe we could have a few drinks, unwind, and talk some insurance stuff or just life in general. It could be more fun. So
Fantastic.
I do that, and I also work with the InsurTech Association that was started by Josh Hollander and Bob Sargent. Great guys. I think in between my MGA and what I'm working on now, made the mistake of telling Bob Sargent that I didn't have much going on, and he's great. You're the executive director of the ITA now, and it's a role that I happily like. We've been able to bring a lot of support staff in and help, but really trying to build up the insurtech ecosystem, working with other great community groups out there, and supporting our members. So that's been a lot of fun. And then, yeah, Turris is what I've been working on for the last year and a half or so. And really, that's just solving some of the problems I saw in the space trying to operate as an MGA. So we sold primarily through independent agents. We had a wholesale arm. We had acted as a retail agent in the past. And interacting with our carrier partners and then with our retail agent partners was always very difficult, from onboarding them, doing the compliance, handling payments, all of the kind of operational minutia you can think of in dealing with third parties in a very highly regulated space. That's what Turris is working on solving. And so we have built everything from the ground up, kind of with how we wanted to see it,
Hmm.
rather than maybe some outsiders coming in, which have done a great job. But definitely the insurance space, you need to really know the workflows, and you need to know kind of where the bodies are buried, and how things need to be done. So we've taken that approach with everything, and really think of ourselves as helping kind of liaise between MGAs and carriers and their sales partners, which are mostly retail agents and wholesalers.
All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. So operations platform, insurance back office. Okay.
Yes.
Can
So
I
think of us as automating any of the things on the back office that relate to your agency relationships as an MGA or carrier. So
Mhm.
most of those kind of fall into 2 buckets. One are the compliance and licensing requirements. So things like making sure the agent is allowed to sell that policy in that state, the agency and the agent, keeping that process up to date. So those are not one-time things. You are renewing licenses constantly. And I think what's really interesting as more niche MGAs pop up, and this is one of the reasons I'm so interested in doing the podcast, is meeting all of these MGAs that are addressing risk kind of further down the general value chain. So specific to not only an industry, but like a sub-industry. And they have some data that makes their underwriting more valuable, or they can price better. Maybe they handle claims better. But that can get more difficult for an agent to sell in one location. And so an agent might start niching down as well and focusing nationwide on that subgroup. To do that, the MGA typically has a very good digital distribution system to allow for it, but
Mhm.
the agent still needs to be licensed in every single state that they're selling in. And that's easy to do. It's easy to get those set up, but they're harder to maintain and harder to keep track of. So we work with all of the licensing to help with that, the onboarding. And then how do we pay those agents now that we are letting them sell policies on our system? Can we get them paid quickly? Can we automate that process? On the ENS side of things, can we stamp the documents with their policy numbers? Sorry, with their license numbers? Can we automate the filing of those policy documents with the states, the taxes that come along with that? So that's all typically still handled manually in a lot of instances, or with point solutions that maybe you can plug into a database that you are maintaining. But that kind of centralization of that data doesn't exist right now for the most part. And so we are acting as that centralization and then
Okay.
building services around the workflows around that data to power these different automations.
Okay. What is the implementation like? I think that the like, even though I've never worked or ran an MGA, it seems to me intuitively like totally makes sense why this is needed. So in that case, I move to the second question, which is what is the implementation like, right? So I've got some sort of tech stack, probably not very well integrated. What does it look like to bring in tourists?
Yeah. So it depends on where you are as an MGA or carrier. Most of them have been in operations for a while. And so there's an onboarding process that we've actually unlocked some interesting ways to speed that process up. But if you're a brand new MGA or RRG, we just onboarded a new RRG that's launched in Texas, a really interesting company on how they're handling homeowners, and bringing that risk pool together. We onboarded their very first agent. So that was more helping them set up the process, think about
Mhm.
compliance in the right way. They don't have a target on their back right now from a regulatory perspective, but they still were thinking in advance as we grow very quickly, as we think about trying to move into new states, as we try to keep our front happy, our capacity happy. We want to show that we're doing a good job with compliance. And so
Mhm.
they wanted to set up processes very early on to allow for that. In the same way, we're working with different MGA platforms as they're launching new MGAs or maybe acquiring very young MGAs, or think of like the MGA labs over at InsurTech New York, right? Those are very smart people starting those, but probably don't have a compliance background, aren't thinking about that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So, how do we set those operations up in the way that allow them to kind of check all the boxes and keep their
Mhm.
partners happy? So
Mhm.
that's a small percentage, but those are fun because you're educating and you're kind of setting the process up from day one. If you are an MGA or a carrier that's been in operation, which is the majority of them, you already have 500,000, maybe 10,000 agencies onboarded. What we do is we can basically pull data from however you're keeping it right now. Sometimes it's in a spreadsheet, sometimes it's done through another point solution. There might be partial sets of data in the policy admin system as far as the agencies and underlying agent users are concerned. So we pull that in, and then we ended up automating processes around collecting E&O documents and cyber documents, and we realized we could kind of combine those two processes to onboard a company very quickly. So we were matching up data that we were getting from the state DOIs with these PDFs that were unstructured, right? They weren't pulling data from them. We put some AI together pretty quickly to allow us to extract that data and start matching it with agencies. And that led us to onboard very quickly. So the first customer that onboarded, it was a very hellish process. We were doing most of it behind the scenes. They were kind of cleaning it up for us, but it probably took about 2 weeks. And
Mhm.
then as we started launching some of the automations around the PDF data extractions, we've now shrunk that down to even if you have 500 agencies, let's say, we can usually do that, the majority of it, about 90% in 2 hours or
Oh
less
wow,
at this point.
that is. I mean, I spend more time talking about carriers than MGAs, but very rarely does anybody on the podcast talk about 2 hours to get set up.
There's still cleanup. I think what's more impressive is they see that 90% of their data is now in our system without really them doing much work. They've had to provide us with access to that data, but they haven't had to cleanse it. There's
Mhm.
still, because of the M&A activity, there's still lags. Nothing like the DOIs are doing the best they can to keep up with this as well, but there's usually data lags there.
Of course.
And so there's some cleanup that we have to do to kind of match, the past maybe month to reality of today.
Mhm.
But beyond that, we're able to get them on quite quickly.
All right. All right. All right. Wow. Okay. What is the pricing like?
It depends just on your status as a company and how you want to use us. So we have an off-the-shelf version that's kind of low five figures right now and gives you quite a bit of room to grow over the course of a 2-year period. If you're a brand new startup and let's say you're not going to be onboarding agents for 6 months while you're waiting for approval, maybe it's an admitted product that they're working on. They do want to start onboarding agents before they're approved, but not 6 months in advance. And
Mhm.
so we've actually launched a new service just recently where we help manage the internal licenses as well. So
Oh.
we'll help them on day one get their MGA license for their entity, whomever the kind of designated license producer is for the agency, or
Mhm.
sorry, for the MGA, or if they have an underwriter that's going to be licensed, we'll help run those processes.
Okay.
And we're getting better at automating them as well as we kind of interact with the states. And really that's some of the agentic AI things we're working on is where states are not making those processes available other than via their website. We
Mm-hmm.
can automate some of those through some of our agentic AI that we've been able to build out. So we really try to start with them on day one, get them licensed, and then from there start helping build their internal policies for the automations that we're going to be doing down the road. And then we'll kind of bifurcate the pricing. So we'll do just for the internal licenses to start with, and then we'll work with them on pricing as they start onboarding. Some of the larger entities that we work with where there's a full customization or it's an enterprise suite. So an MGA platform, for instance, they may be giving these instances out to each of their MGAs, but from an enterprise perspective, they want to see all of the onboardings that are taking place, that they're compliant, that they're getting the correct licenses in and the correct policy documents in. We may handle the appointments as well if it's an admitted product, and we're working with the front. And then there's the API, which we think is really interesting in how it's being used in some ways that we did not imagine. We always knew it would be used kind of for their own digital front end. So we can plug the onboarding process and any of the dashboards or data extraction that we have into a policy admin system. We're just launching kind of our first integration now with Peter Tilbrook and Loro. We'll be
Awesome.
announcing, well, by the time I believe this comes out, it'll be
Fantastic.
announced. We have a shared customer where we're helping kind of run some processes and we'll do the onboarding with them. But the API is also being used just for front ends that have been built by carriers on their own for them to onboard their agents. We do real-time compliance checks by plugging into the policy admin system. So depending on how the customization of that looks like and what you need to use the API for, the pricing can change depending on that. But what we try to do is, and this is kind of our goal longer term, because we have this centralization of this agency data now, over time, we can start powering adjacent workflows, both in the compliance side, specifically around the ENS filings, tax filings, things like that. Eventually payments, potentially premium finance, the commission automation payments. Our goal is to wrap these service offerings into a holistic platform that if you were going to go out and kind of purchase these via different point solutions, which are doing a really good job, but they're quite expensive and the tech has been built, 5+ years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The tech's just more expensive. I think having two startups now, what I noticed, maybe you've seen this as well, 5, 8 years ago, I guess, really, when we started building Stable's technology stack, the amount of money and the amount of resources from a personnel perspective we needed to build that versus what we're building now, which is probably 5 times more complex. There's just a lot more moving parts. There's an enterprise component to it. We're no longer the customer as an internal user, right? We're having all these external parties use the platform. We've probably built it in 75% less time and definitely for 75% less cost, just because technology has gotten so good, specifically how we're using AI kind of off the shelf
Fantastic.
coding platforms, things like that, just to speed up development. So what we're trying to do is pass those cost savings on to our customers as well. And I think that just allows us to be a little bit more cost effective than other
Mm-hmm.
solutions that are out there.
Mm-hmm. You're probably the third or fourth in the last 3 months that has specifically talked about how much easier it is now. Uh, so yes, it's an incredibly exciting time because of what how AI, when used properly, is allowing startups to create so much better, so much faster, so much better cost.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So that is really cool.
it's amazing. And I think the luck of kind of being at this point in time to build something, that's all it is. I think there's going to be this demarcation point where companies that built after a certain point in time over the last 2 years are able to compete both on price, but then just have leaner teams. I think about how I raised capital for my last startup, and We still have to raise capital. We are relying upon that, to a certain point, but I think we can get out of it much faster than we could before. And again, like really build more for our customers and offer to them at a lower cost point.
That's a win-win-win for all of my worlds, right? It might not be a win-win if you're a very highly paid developer.
Right, right.
But from my perspective, it's a win-win for the insurtech founder. It's a win-win for the client. It's a win-win for the industry. So that is fantastic, awesome. On the pricing side, is there a minimum are we signing up for a minimum 1 year, 3 years? What is the contract like?
Yeah, so we try to do a minimum of 1 year, and then if you do longer, there's discounts that we can offer. Um, Again, I've been in the position where, we've had to slow operations down, or what we bought we didn't need at that point in time. So we are hopefully more flexible than, maybe working with a larger solution provider.
Fantastic.
And especially because I lived that pain.
I hear
Um,
that over and over.
yeah.
It's hard.
So when somebody reaches out and they're like, "Hey, I'm not going to use this for 3 more months. What can we do?" We're not going to hold that over their head. We are very flexible with that, and we know there's going to be a time, right, when some of these businesses don't make it. Same thing. Right, they're trying maybe to make their last payroll. Maybe get a little bit of money to their investors, or again, like get money to themselves. A lot of these people have put 2, 3, 5 years in. They're getting nothing. They're just looking out for all the stakeholders that they had. And
Mhm.
for me to say, yeah, you got to pay me that last $10,000, or I'm going to sue you. That's just ridiculous to me. So maybe our investors don't like us saying that publicly, but I think we try to be more friendly from a startup perspective for sure.
This recording's not live. You always have the chance from here until it
No, no,
goes
no.
out to send me an email
That's
to
right.
cut something out. This is the most likely part.
There's
Uh,
many other things that my investors wish I wouldn't say publicly, so this can be low on the list.
all right, all right. Okay. What are the clients saying? So once they're on the platform, what kind of feedback are you getting?
Yeah, we're getting great feedback. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say that, but I think again, being a young company, for us, having a happy customer is everything. Do we screw up? Absolutely. Are there bugs in the software? 100%. It's how you handle that and expectation management. I think that's everybody understands. And even as we've gotten to larger customers, um, some of them will come in and make a bigger deal about things not working quite the way they anticipated it, or they had asked for something specific and it's not quite ready yet. But for the most part, everybody's very understanding. And really, I think what we're seeing is it solves automation problems that couldn't be solved prior. So
Okay.
even if there are things that maybe not necessarily were oversold, but are on the wait list and like, I really want this now, it's still doing a better job than either what their current process was or their current vendor that they had in place, at least from an automation perspective. Because that was really our goal is rather than having these kind of automations that start and then you have a manual stop and you have to do some work and then maybe it can start again. Can we automate the entirety of the process and more make notifications available so you know what's going on? And I think the other big thing that we've partially this is a sales tactic, but we've had a lot of value I think that we've gotten from it is helping not necessarily the user, but maybe the buyer, like the P&L leader understand the value of our platform. And so we make dashboards available to them so they can kind of see like, here's how many onboardings took place, or here's how many data feeds that we saved you X amount of hours by doing this, or your team X amount of hours. So they could spend their time doing other things. I think insurance, and you definitely know this, I think being in the recruiting space, there is not a shortage of work to be done in the space right now. So it's not that our automation or any of the AI that we're working on is taking jobs away. Really, what it's doing is it's allowing that ops team to focus on probably higher value tasks or things that internally they would be better spending their time on. There's no shortage of work, and I don't think anybody's firing or laying people off because they're working with us to date.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, so we talked about pricing, we talked about implementation, we talked about customers feedback. All right, so origin story. So yeah, so normally the question is, how did you realize this was a need and that you were the right people to build it? In your case, given that this is your second time at the InsurTech dance, yeah, how did it happen that you realized
Yeah.
this was
So my co-founder, Sven, he was one of the engineers working with us at Stable and was one of them that was tasked with trying to build some of these automations internally for us. So like all of our current customers, I was in their shoes looking for solutions, and we couldn't quite find what we wanted, or it was too expensive. Didn't do enough automation for us, and so a lot of this we were starting to build internally, and Sven was tasked with a lot of those projects, and so he understood the problem quite well. And when we basically exited out of the MGA, um, Sven came to me. He's like, "This is still a big problem. I have to imagine we weren't the only ones trying to solve it. I don't have the connections in the insurance space, but Doug, if you're interested, like I'm really interested in working on the problem. If you can kind of help find the users." And so we had a couple different iterations of what it was, because our view, you really need over time to kind of, I guess, provide the most value for this space, for the back office, for the operations within insurance. You need to actually run the finance component as well. And it's really how compliance and finance interact with each other and with all the stakeholders that you have. And so it's kind of this kind of three-way battle of processes that are taking place. And we are kind of focused on one of them right now, but over time we want to do the other two. And I think if you are going to do that, you do have to have kind of one, knowledge of the space, but then access to the space to experiment. So the first experiment that we ran to do that wasn't on the compliance side, it was on the finance side. And we tried to start a neobank for independent agents, which we have everything built. We actually have the partners ready to go for that still. But what we found was the go to market motion was just much too expensive. And so when you think about what you can actually make as a neobank, it's not that much, at least at first. And so, unless you're doing a bunch of lending, or you're doing, all of the money movement between maybe all the insurance partners, which was our ultimate goal, it's really difficult, at least from a working with independent agents perspective, to make enough money to kind of show investors to let you get to the next stage. And so we realized if we could get in front of all of those independent agents, that was a viable path, but it was too expensive to do so. But now what we found is independent agents and wholesalers are our users now. So every time we onboard a new MGA, we are onboarding all of their independent agents as well. And so over time, we're just going to start building processes into the dashboards that we give them, whether those are banking. Right now, it's more focused on compliance, so helping them get new licenses, update their licenses, things like that. But yeah, that was the first iteration of it, and I think we're coming back around to it now, starting to get more involved in the finance aspect of it. So that was the realization that we had internally. That's kind of led to it. And really, it was, I think, Sven kind of pushing on it, continuing to say, Doug, like, why don't you come in and do another startup and kind of use your network to help build this out?
All right. All right. So we are recording on May 1st. Given how stupidly busy I am when it comes to podcast episodes, it'll be a while before this goes out, but I can give you an idea. My best guess, let's call it May 20th. If I do manage to get an episode out every weekday from here until then. So taking that into account, are there any new features coming down the development pipeline that you can already talk about that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, so we now have just launched, and so this will be 3 or 4 weeks old, I guess, by this point that it goes live. But kind of our managed services solution,
Okay.
which I had talked about, like helping those
Oh, perfect,
MGAs
perfect.
at their earliest stages
Oh, that's right.
set up their licenses.
Mhm.
But we're just seeing more demand for that. As we started talking, what we try to do is on our kind of homepage dashboard, when you go into the application, we'll throw whatever the new thing is that we have. and we'll see how people interact with it. And so we threw up this internal licenses tab. And almost immediately, everybody started looking at it, asking about it, and said, "Hey, I use XYZ for this right now, or a law firm for this, and it's quite expensive. How do you charge for that?" So
Okay.
that's taken off, and we're getting a lot of good feedback on that.
Fantastic.
Um, I think we'll have more on the agency side as well. So right now, it's a pretty limited user experience for the agencies. It's really helping them manage their relationship as it pertains to that specific market that they're working with, which is our customer. But we've already started to see agents who obviously work with many markets, right? Sometimes up to 30 or 40, even if they're a small independent agency. So we've now kind of seen the doubling of that, right? They're working with two different customers, and when they update on our platform, now that can be pushed out to both of those MGAs or carriers at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is to get more and more of those on and just be more valuable to the agencies. And so I think the first public version of that, where we maybe are trying to work on getting agencies on the platform through uh, outside sales channels rather than just our partners, that will have started by that point as well.
All right. Fan Fantastic. Have you guys gone through any accelerator, or are you scheduled to go through a broker tech or one-on-one Weston Labs or any of the accelerators?
Yeah, well, so we're part of the Creative Destruction Lab, which is
Okay.
uh, University of Wisconsin and AmFam, I think is the big backer there.
Amazing.
There's a few others, but
Mhm.
those are the two primary ones. And so we are set. We're actually going to be in Madison a week from tomorrow.
Mhm.
Uh, no, sorry, 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Mhm.
So after this, we'll be there before this airs. And it's a really cool, I call it Startup Survivor. So it started in November. This is the fourth session. You need to make it through each session to get to the next one.
Mhm.
So somebody has to raise their hand and be willing to mentor you.
Oh,
So we've
so it's
had
like The
some.
Voice.
It is, yeah, yeah. Voice, maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm dating the Survivor thing. That's kind of the
Uh,
last reality TV show that I
I,
can
I
remember
I don't
watching.
really watch TV, but I've seen a few episodes of that. Okay.
Yeah, so you
Uh,
get voted, you get the mentor. Voice is much better, actually. I'm gonna change my analogy going forward. I like the voice better.
awesome.
Um, and so yeah, we had some great mentors, some from USAA, CJ Prezabel, who's a good friend of ours from Reserve. He was super helpful. Just overall, just a great group of people, very
Mhm.
willing to make intros, very willing to help out, give feedback on the sales process. I think my big thing, I've never done enterprise sales, so this was completely new to me. How to run those sales cycles, what that looks like, and I think
Whew,
insurance is even different, right?
yes,
So
yes, yes. It's one of the hardest skill sets that we recruit for, and it's in such high demand,
yeah,
and so few people have mastered it. It is an expensive skill set. Yes, 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 yes.
yeah. So they've
All
been
right.
helpful with that, but yeah.
So the Creative Destruction Lab, it is not insurance specific. So it is backed by AmFam, which makes sense in Wisconsin, but it sounds like a bunch of different types of startups go through it.
Well, they have different tracks. This specifically is in risk, and so Loro, so my good friend Peter Tilbrook, right there, they're in it. So we'll see them in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to
Fantastic.
that. And my co-host on the podcast.
How long is the program?
Well, this is the last time. So
When did it start?
started in November,
Okay.
and so it's
About
four 8-week sessions that you
four
go
8 week
through.
sessions. All
Yeah,
right. All right.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Uh,
so definitely if you're an insurtech startup, I'm sure they're doing applications soon. I think right around this time last year, maybe summer, maybe June.
mhm.
So yeah, if you're listening to this, go check out the Creative Destruction
Okay.
Lab risk track. Happy to make intros there as well. If you're
At what point do they play? So what I mean by that is, for example, GIA is the one that tends to play at that is willing to come in, have you on at the little more than an idea on the back of a napkin kind of thing, and RevTech in North Carolina, they won't take a look at you until you have an MVP, a few customers, and ongoing revenue. Like at what stage are they willing to play? What's the youngest that they play?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to have revenue. I think you should have a product or working towards a product. And really the mentors they bring in, they will fill different needs. So they have product specific, sales specific, fundraising specific, team building, uh, media, PR. So I think there have been startups that haven't raised, or maybe the idea was there, they had built some tech or they had built a process and were getting some type of feedback. I think more importantly, what they want to see is there's validation
Mm-hmm.
somehow from the market
Okay.
that you can point to in your application, and then that the mentors can be useful. So that's their big thing is like if and one of the reasons that you don't like you don't move to the next stage, if there's no mentor that feels they can be useful, then you really probably aren't going to be valuable to the program, or they're not going to be valuable to you as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so they don't want to waste your time
Of
going
course.
forward.
All
So
right.
that's the bigger thing. I think it's
Very
pretty.
cool. I had not actually heard about that one. Loving the idea. So I would love to have both you and Peter. Once I don't know, like 6 months from now, whenever you're both done going through the program, I would love to have you both on the show to talk about what it was like. We did a similar episode about GIA, and basically Colby went through all three of the went through GIA, Broker Tech, and 101 Weston Labs, and compared the three experiences. So
Yeah,
anyway, I would love to have you guys talk about what your experience was like, and also if the Credit Destruction Lab people are listening, love to have you on.
I can put
Uh,
them in touch as well. We'll
I would love that.
yeah,
So Doug, this has been
they're great
really,
people.
really awesome. Really, really, really awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to see you guys continue to grow. I love seeing second time InsurTech founders. Uh, and it is so awesome. To me, it's mind blowing that we are at that stage in InsurTech where I'm getting more and more returning founders, and it
Yeah.
is so cool because you guys are so much more mature in the way you run a startup than first time founders.
Oh,
So
100%.
so
Yeah. You know all the mistakes, you know what not to do. I think
so that
this
leads
time
to
around.
even better episodes for me, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to see you on the road. I'm guessing I'll probably see you at Insights New York in June.
Get insights. Are you
Uh,
going to be at Scout as well?
I have a conflict with Scout is fantastic. I'm a big
I'm
fan of
looking forward to
Scout.
it. Yeah.
I'm going to be at Rice Leadership Summit in Fort Lauderdale that same time.
Okay. Well, I was
Uh,
going to say if you were going to be around, I think that's the first time we're going to try our MGA after dark or Age of the MGA after dark. So we'll get you on another time,
okay,
kind
perfect,
of
perfect.
get
So
the
I
podcast
would love to.
studio, have a couple drinks and
I
talk
yes,
insurance.
I would absolutely love to. Peter happens to be one of the few people that I've recorded with in person.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes. The other one was Lazarus. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Lazarus, Loro, and it hasn't gone out yet, but I also recorded in person with Norman Max.
Okay.
Uh,
Was that
so
Sam?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Sam's a great guy. Yeah.
it was Sam. Also for yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony.